To the home of highbrow know-how that we call QI. Tonight we'll be groping down the back of the great sofa of history to find those tasty morsels that other historians have so carelessly discarded there. And to accompany me on my quest, I have the postmodern Rob Brydon. The pre-classical David Mitchell. The Pleistocene Sandy Toksvig. And our very own bowl of primordial soup, Alan Davis. Now, each panellist is, of course, equipped with a suitably historic buzzer. Sandy goes... Oh, David goes... Quite long. Rob goes... and Alan goes... Of course. So, as we stroll off into the mists of time, let's start with something nice and easy. Name a henge.
Now, look.
Nah.
Yeah.
Sea henge.
Oh! There is a sea henge, but it's not a henge.
Oh, right.
It's a word with the word henge in it.
Oh, I see.
Right,
Yeah.
as Spigot has got the word pig in it, but it isn't a pig.
Right.
You see?
So the word henge in it, that's wrong.
I think you're wary enough for good reasons.
Yeah,
a henge is a specific thing. What is a henge?
You normally have two of them on the side of a door or on top hung on a window.
Oh, do your noise henge, sir. Yes.
A hedge bent on revenge, that's what it is.
Good. Yeah. Is it a very old form of economic investment? It's a henge fund.
Hey! Good. No, it's not that either. It's one of those archaeological words. There's a specific meaning as an embanked area outside with ditches on the inside. You're right? And Stonehenge is the other way round, so it's not a henge. Even though the name henge comes from Stonehenge.
A henge is a word for something that's like Stonehenge,
Yeah.
but not including Stonehenge.
Basically.
Was the word
It was just
stone
Stonehenge.
named after Stonehenge?
Yes, the stone. You're safe with the stone.
Maybe Stonehenge was just a noise they came up with for Stonehenge, which luckily gave them a word for two common sorts of things.
Okay.
Probably the noise they made when they put those top ones up.
People just, right up until the 20th century, were quarrying it. They would actually set fires on the lintels, the top bits, to crack the stone and take it off and build things.
Nowadays, it's cordoned off.
Yes, it is rather, isn't it?
The Druids, they get...
Oh, the Druids, they can do what they want.
How long have Druids been celebrating at religious services?
1970.
Basically, since the beginning of the 20th century. There's no evidence that Druids had anything to do with Stonehenge at all.
So why did they get all these concessions so quickly of access to Stonehenge?
It was in 1905 when they started doing it. Stonehenge was private property. It was on somebody's land. It didn't belong to anybody except the owner of it. And then Chubb in 1915, who went to a lunatic asylum nearby, bought it. 1915-16 for his wife. You're quite right.
Yes, he bought it for his wife at auction.
Yeah, and 3 years later, she gifted it to the nation.
Yeah.
Re-gifted.
Yes, re-gifted. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, it must have been hell to clean. Top bits. Top bits.
So the Druids have access to it, so presumably, I mean, they can't all have parked miles away. They must have little stickers in their windows with a little Druid sign on it, which also gets them into Ku Klux Klan meetings.
Yeah, you've just got to straighten up their headdresses.
They can park near the burning cross.
Yeah. There was a mention you made there of sea henge.
Yeah,
What is sea henge?
So that's not a proper henge either.
No.
Sea henge, isn't it? It's sort of some bits of very old and knackered wood that occasionally become visible when the side is inside. So essentially...
55 bits of old oak in home next to the sea in the North Norfolk coast, which was only discovered quite recently. car henge, does that mean anything to you?
Yes, I do know what that is.
Yes?
Well, I'll guess. It's that...
You started really confident.
Yeah, and then suddenly...
Just slid away from you there.
It's probably not right. I'll give it a go.
Is it?
I think I know what it is. And it was featured on the inner liner notes of Bruce Springsteen's album The River, in particular reference to the song Cadillac Ranch. It's all these Cadillacs that have been... It's not, is it?
Yes, it is.
It is, it is!
Yes,
yeah, it is, yeah. All these
Brilliant.
cars have been stuck in the ground.
And sprayed with grey paint, yeah. Yeah, it's in Nebraska.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, that obviously looks quite a lot like Stonehenge, considering it's made of cars.
Yes.
But you can't help feeling he could have made it look more like Stonehenge if he'd used something else to make it with.
It was a memorial to his father.
Was he killed in a car accident?
Does the name Alfred Watkins mean anything to you? He wrote a book called The Old Straight Track in the 1920s, and he posited something that he called lays.
Those sort of spiritual lines, as it
Yes,
were.
yes, people apparently wrongly call them ley lines.
They're wrong.
Yeah, apparently that's
Whereas
wrong.
people who allege they exist aren't wrong to do that.
But we can show you some ley lines of Britain, which may make you think again. Each one of those letters represents
Yes.
something.
Certainly challenging my
Well, it is
scepticism.
If each one of these letters represented a stone circle or a henge of some kind, it would be quite a coincidence, because you would need to get above the ground to get in that shape. But actually, this map was drawn by someone who was deliberately poking fun at ley lines, because this is nothing less than a representation of Woolworth stores in Britain. As he says, you can't rule out the possibility that Woolworths used aliens to get so exact and perfect a geometrical shape.
It does look like if you folded it one more time, you'd get a frog.
Yeah. It looks certainly quite origami.
Surely there are more. Or
There are
were.
800, but
there
those...
were more.
Yeah.
So he's been very selective in his
But
choice of Woolworths.
whereas people who believe in ley lines aren't. So, well, that's your henges for you. According to archaeologists, Stonehenge isn't really a henge at all. So, I have a thing that I want to show you. This might help in decision-making. You have a look at one there. There we are. Pass one along. There you go.
There's a bowl.
It's a replica of an original ancient British bronze bowl that was discovered in Northern Ireland.
Very like a bronze bowl.
It's very like a bronze bowl.
It has got a hole in it.
Ah!
Yours.
Has yours got a hole in the bottom?
Yes.
They've all got holes in the
Yeah.
bottom. How would they... Oh! That's a very ancient British use, it must be said.
You know what I'd use this for, Stephen?
Tell me.
If I were enjoying some salted pistachios at home while watching the Emmerdale omnibus, I would use this to deposit...
Kill yourself.
Kill yourself.
No, I'm joking, of course. I would use it to deposit the shells.
Oh, and would the salt run out of the bottom hole?
Yes, it would, and I would use that to encourage slugs. I would make a trail of the salt
Right.
to encourage them to their death.
Yes.
You see.
Do you think that's what ancient Britons used to use it for?
I think I'm close.
Yeah. Except it would have been Crossroads rather than Emmerdale Farm.
Of course it would, yes.
Would you like me to demonstrate how you
put-
use
Yes.
it? I have one here. It's a slightly bigger one. I have a large
Where's the fish gone?
vase. And if I put it in here,
Oh, gosh.
what's
that's
going to
good.
happen?
Yeah, great. It's going to sink.
It's going to sink.
Eventually, yeah.
But the point is, it takes a set amount of time to fall to the bottom. And you could call that time a minute or something. If you give it a name and make it a time unit, suddenly you've got a way of repeating a consistent length of time. And almost all civilizations have developed different ways of measuring a unit of time that they can predict. Not necessarily to tell the time of day, which is, you could say when it's noon, but it's, I will see you in so let's call it a Bowlington. When it hits the bottom, bang! So you're playing hide...
Go!
Yeah, go, exactly. So if you're playing hide and seek, you'll say, I'll give you a Bowlington, OK? Yeah. And then you just drop it like that. And then...
It's called a water clock or a water thief. It's called a
Ah, that's slightly different.
Is it?
Yeah, that's a Greek thing. That's a klepsydra.
Klepsydra, yeah.
Yeah, which is a water thief. And they actually used it the other way around, which is to say they had a bowl with a hole in it, but they perched it above, and they measured out the amount of water that dropped out through the hole. Yeah, what other forms of early clocks do you know about?
But candles marked off.
Yes.
Yes,
Do you know who was said to be the inventor of the candle? It's a legend. Yeah, there you are. Alfred the Great, they say.
Oh, really?
They're not very reliable, to be honest.
Well, no, he burnt those cakes.
Yes, exactly, you see.
Very difficult to strap to your wrist as well as a...
Other kinds of sundials. Do you know about explosive sundials, you might call them? Yeah? The sundial alarm clock. It uses a lens so that when the sun hits the lens, it points a beam at a fuse, which tracks all the way to a cannon and fires a gun at exactly noon.
Can you get one of those things?
You could make it.
Fantastic way to wake the children.
In a hail of bullets. Yeah. Get ready for school.
Dance! Yeah, that would do it. We've got time telling by seeing something, the sun's shadow, for example, on a dial, and by listening to a drum or a gun going off. But the Chinese, God bless them, they managed to use another sense.
Is it something that goes off in a certain amount of time when it starts to stink?
Sort of. They just had gradated incense sticks, joss sticks, so that it would burn for an hour and it would smell of sandalwood, and then it would go through another band which smelt of rose or something. So you could tell what time it was by, oh, it's the rose-smelling time, it's that hour, you know. That's rather sweet. It's totally...
It's cinnamon, I must collect the children.
Yes, exactly. You talked about the clepsydra, the Greek one that was like a bowl, but there was a much more subtle Greek machine. Have you ever heard of a really remarkable Greek computer?
Watch.
Sort of. It was much more than a watch, though. It was discovered in 1901 by sponge divers. It's known as the...
SpongeBob?
SpongeBob, SquarePants and Antikythera. And the Antikythera is an extraordinary device. I mean, look at it. I mean, that's ancient Greek. And do you know what it can tell you? It can determine the course of the sun, the moon, and the known planets. When you entered the date, it calculated the positions for you. An achievement made all the more remarkable by the fact that they believed that the solar system was geocentric rather than solar-centric, as it were.
Stephen, you've been watching QVC again.
It does look like it.
It does look like something you'd get on there.
It subdivided the year into 365 days, including a leap year every fourth year. It was able to predict eclipses of the moon and the sun, as well as the appearance of zodiacs.
And this is from the Greeks?
From the ancient Greeks, around 180 BC. And it kept track of the ancient Olympic Games, you know, which year was an Olympic year.
Discovered by sponge divers.
Sponge divers.
I find it odd that there's just as much water where sponges grow as there is anywhere else.
It is odd. You weren't a guest on that particular show. It was an early QI. Do you know a peculiar property of sponges?
No.
It really is amazing. You put a sponge in a liquidizer. It will obviously just turn into a sort of hideous coloured mess and then settle down. It will reassemble itself into a sponge. But more amazingly, put two sponges in and it will settle itself into its two original sponge shapes. Isn't that
So they're essentially like Terminators.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But Terminator 2.
It's evil, isn't it? It's definitely evil.
Yeah. But
we should definitely, I think, destroy all sponges, shouldn't we?
That's only natural sponge, not the one you get at Halfords.
No.
It's proper real sponge from the body shop sort of sponge.
Yes, that kind, yeah.
Oh, I'm going to do that as soon as I get home.
Yeah, I think they have to be alive, though. I think the dried-out ones you get at the body shop probably won't count.
Where would I go
they've
to
lost
get
the
You
will,
would
man.
dive in the Adriatic or the Aegean Sea would be a good place.
Well, what time is it now?
Well, there's your problem. They'd probably pay you to go to Greece, given their economy.
Had the sponges stolen that clock? what were they doing with it?
Well, I think it had been dropped off a ship or it was it was under sea.
Look, if they've got these powers, we don't need them to have access to our technology as well.
You said the divers found that. Sorry, I missed it.
Yes.
I genuinely thought you said they were kind of creating that from the sponges.
No!
They found
Sponge divers.
I've been sitting here going, how the hell did they do that?
Yeah.
Well, you thought in ancient Greece the greatest sort of timekeeping technology was possessed by the sponge divers.
That's how it appeared to me over here.
But moving on to more modern timekeeping pieces, the recent discovery, or recent invention, I suppose you'd call it, of the most accurate clock yet devised.
Is it the atomic...
It's a new optical clock, accurate to 1 second in 3.7 billion years. But what is the point of having an incredibly accurate clock?
Well, you'd have to know when SpongeBob SquarePants is going to start.
Well, there are some ready meals that you need to time, exactly.
Yeah. Well, how does GPS work?
Well, I don't know.
Satellites, various satellites.
You send a signal from your GPS device to... You've got to be at least 3, usually 4 or 5 satellites that receive your signal. And the difference in time it takes to get from one satellite to the other, which is milliseconds. Allows them to calculate your position to within 10 metres.
So they built this clock so your tom-tom will work. That's basically...
No, this one, you'll be within a metre, and if not less. You would be able to have aeroplanes landing without you'll be able to have traffic on motorways without humans driving, because it's so accurate. But also email or any transaction over the internet uses what's called packet switching, which means that the information is broken up into packets, and they're reassembled the other side. But each side has to be exactly synchronised. Otherwise, the message is nonsense. So the cesium atomic clocks are not just for, gosh, look how accurate. Yeah. I know it's exactly it. But it's, in fact, in order to make all this technology work. It's rather pleasing, isn't it?
I prefer it when it's a bit more relaxed. Who was the king that had Sandringham time? Was it Edward VII?
Yes.
Who used to have all the clocks were set half an hour earlier so that everybody got up for hunting. And I read this once. And I thought, what a marvellous idea. And on New Year's Eve, for years, I used to reset the clocks during the day, and at 9 o'clock, we'd all go, it looked like it was midnight, and I'd say to the children, well, look, you've stayed up, isn't it marvellous? Well done. We put them to bed, it was marvellous, it was fantastic.
Yes, well, there is accurate time and there is Bergsonian internal time, isn't that? The time in which things can seem to take a lifetime in your own head and things can go fast. But
don't they say that the amount of time something seems to take is in terms of a percentage of how long you've been alive?
Time speeds up the older you get. I had an aunt in her 90s, and she said, it can't be breakfast again. Astonished by the idea. It's just like...
For the Queen Mother, everything after 1964 was just a sort of blur. She must have thought, my horses are definitely getting quicker.
So, yeah, it was an ancient British clock. One of the ways we told the time in the days when being accurate to a billionth of a second didn't seem quite so important. Talking of time, it's time for a picture round. Here's a very famous image, so you can bank a few points. How was it made? What is it?
It's not a tapestry.
Right, thank you. You've learnt. Firstly, it wasn't made in Bayeux. Bayeux's in France, and this was probably in Kent. Do we know who by?
Well, the Normans commissioned it, but the sort of Saxon embroiderer ladies did it.
Yes, absolutely right.
But it's one of the great examples of why women's history has completely disappeared, Stephen, because women tended to make things like this phenomenal piece of work, which is embroidery, but they didn't sign it. And so we don't know the names. We know the name of the man who commissioned it, but we don't know the names of the women who made it. The lack of signature is one of the kind of classic reasons why women's history has completely disappeared, because it's an astonishing piece of work.
It is remarkable, and you're quite right to say it's an embroidery, which is absolutely not a tapestry. Tapestry is all one material with the different colours woven in at the weaving stage, whereas this is a woven piece of cloth that is then embroidered.
Well, that's so typical. The women do all this embroidery and the man goes, oh, nice tapestry, thanks very much.
Yeah, I know. It's very absurd, isn't it?
Couldn't make us a cup of tea now, could you?
My
hands are raw.
Is the word tapestry named after the Bayeux tapestry, but they decided to make it mean something?
Yes, what else? Can you tell the British from the French in that picture?
Are the British the four-legged ones at the top?
I should say English rather than British,
The English will be the ones not on horses.
That's pretty much true, but also the other giveaways is moustaches. Some of our English fighters were on horses, but the British... the English, I'm allowed to say English, I'm so unused to being allowed to say English, because they were English, had the moustaches, the Harold's housecarls, plus they tended to have battle axes rather than the lances and things.
Great comedy hats, aren't they?
They're rather extraordinary.
They are little sort of party hats. They've got a little bit of elastic under the chin.
Wasn't this done by the same person that did Mr. Ben? It's a very similar style, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Suddenly the
They're
shopkeeper
actually
appeared.
specific blokes that the women doing the embroidery knew. What are you doing? I'm doing Reg.
Yeah. It's a nice
Particularly
thought.
the way he held his axe. It was lovely before they cut him to bits.
And they're sort of mail, as it's called, they're suits of reinforced defensive clothing. Harold Hardrada had a long one which apparently couldn't be penetrated by a spear and was known as Emma.
Is that based on a particularly aloof woman who also couldn't be penetrated?
One's bound to wonder.
Yeah. I didn't know until someone told me this recently, that quite a lot of the names that we use, or Christian names, we call them, came from the Normans and that invasion. They completely changed
Well, yes,
country.
including William, obviously, and the first few kings, John,
and Robert,
Richard.
and lots of them.
Yeah.
It's not just the names, is it not when we start to change the language completely? Is it not when we get beef instead of cow?
Well, because we had two words each time, exactly. So we could use the English word for the animal, cow, and we could use the French word, bœuf, for the food. And the British word sheep and mouton, mutton, can become what you eat. So you eat the mouton, you eat the beef, but the animal is the cow.
But why would that be?
The Saxons herded them and knew them as animals, and the Normans just feasted and ate them because they were the upper class. They would use their word for it. The only time they ever saw a cow was when it was cooked on a plate in front of them. So quite a lot about what we know about the Bayeux tapestry we don't know, because it's not from Bayeux and it's not a tapestry. But how can you tell Harold which one Harold is in the Bayeux tapestry that isn't a tapestry or from Bayeux?
Well, isn't there a bit of dispute about whether he's the one with the arrow in his eye or someone else?
Yeah.
Is it like on Facebook, when you run the cursor over it, you get tagged? and it says, you are also in this photo, and 11 other people.
It is not dissimilar. The tagging is above, but there are 3 tags, all meaning him. Harold, Rex, Interfectus Est, which means Harold the King, is killed. And they tell the story narratively from left to right. So they could all be Harold, or only one of them could be Harold. It's actually almost impossible to tell. We don't really know that he had an arrow in his eye. It's a much later story.
So is it like a cartoon? It kind of goes... It's like one of those books used to flick like
Exactly.
that. Although not successful in embroidery, I think. But,
No,
I think there's a cross between that and Where's Wally, isn't it?
Yes, there's a hint of
Where's Wally.
So the one with the blue shield, he's got an arrow in his eye.
He has, and people have always assumed that was Harold.
That's him. So if it's a journey, I've got an arrow in my eye, I'll just get on this horse for a rest.
Continuity,
And
where's
then,
my shield?
The horse has disappeared. I'm
And
dying.
they cut his head off on the right.
Yeah.
I can't see the arrow in the eye there.
It's not come out very well. I blame bad embroidery.
Yeah. You can see him holding the end of
He
it.
can't have been that ill, though, because he seems to have had time to change his socks.
Yes, no, it probably is different.
I'm dying. Get the death socks.
Stephen, can I point out, can I give the seal of approval to his wonderfully long socks?
Rob long socks. Oh, dear. They are long, Rob. I thought that a bit... Yes, it's probable that it's not the same person repeated, but there was one theory. The other theory is that he's only one of those, and that maybe he's the last one, under the horse almost, because that's where Interfectus Est is killed. I mean, the point is we just don't know. Well, that's good, yes. So we know how we spot the Englishman by the moustaches. The Bayeux tapestry isn't a tapestry, it isn't from Bayeux, and you shouldn't believe anyone who tells you they know how Harold died. However, you can spot the Englishman by their moustaches. As we're on the subject of English gentlemen with moustaches, could you give us your impression of the average World War II British... Oh, dear. The average British World War II fighter pilot.
You know, hilarious on the end.
That is a character. Someone has got to write a sitcom around Dave Mitchell's character.
You look like you're posing with a very successful team of kind of novelty Air Force men. You've just agreed to have your photograph taken with them for your birthday.
I know you're not, but if there was if they'd invented gaydar instead of radar, I'm sorry to say that would mark high.
I'm ordering these helmets for my wife's birthday.
I think in this war film, I think I die about 2/3 of the way through.
It breaks the heart of the audience.
Oh, yeah.
And inspires the hero.
Yeah. Everyone goes and kills a load of Germans as revenge for my death.
And I'm the old First World War hero with a gammy leg who runs and watches them come back and cries because...
I don't think Alan dies. I think you make it through... I think I die. You think I'm going to live.
You're dead.
And then right near the end, I die. I like Von Ryan's Express as I'm running towards
the train.
I get shot at the end.
Right.
I'm the plucky woman who was just supposed to do the radio. Who's been forced to fly one of the planes.
Yeah. You look as if you could do it. You've got your sergeant stripes there.
I look rather fine.
But how do the pilots talk? That's the thing.
Red leader, We've got a lovely team today who will be furnishing you with the easy kiosk, scratch cards, minstrels.
Like that.
Clean up in aisle 3.
Yes. But what sort of people are they? I mean, that's what we're after.
Well,
What sort of people?
Yes.
quite well-spoken
posh,
officer class.
Posh.
They're always posh. That's right. I think you'll find you're wrong.
That's the odd thing. They so weren't.
Really?
Only 30% of all British fighter pilots in the Battle of Britain went to public school. And in fact, of that 30%, they were mostly minor public schools, and of the Eton, Harrow, Winchester, or the top 13, there was only 8%.
It's just the actors that played them were posh, then.
That's the point.
Yeah.
In the war films, during and after the war, it's your Kenneth Moores and your David Nivens and so on, who were, you know, spoke like that, and
Did the Germans know we were sending up the lower classes?
There we got marvellous...
Here comes someone who has got no manners whatsoever.
But there's your Richard Todd on the left, who, of course, is playing a bomber.
Your actual Richard.
Yes, playing Guy Gibson there, I think. And there's, of course, David Niven from A Matter of Life and Death, by the look of it. And that's how people thought of them, with a moustache, only obviously Robert.
I mean, 30% of them having gone to public school, that's more than the percentage of the population.
Yes, which was only... Yeah, absolutely right.
So but just posher than...
But the idea that it was, you know, that posh is the first word that comes to mind, when 70% were state-educated.
Right.
Not privately educated.
But I mean, they didn't speak like Jordan or something, did they?
No, nobody did then.
No.
No.
Can't believe it. There's no way we're going to drop the bums over that lot. It's a real bloody mess down there. Right, let them go. Look at that.
Oh, dear. 20% of all the pilots were, in fact, not even British.
Oh, Polish, a lot of Polish.
Well, quite a few were Polish and Czechoslovakian, but also from the Dominions and the Empire, the Commonwealth, Canada, New Zealand and Australia particularly, of course, and South Africa also.
And sitting on the plane at the end there is obviously hoping for a ride. Yeah.
Is this right? Is this where you go?
I'm ready!
I find you get a better view from here.
What about modern pilots? Is it any advantage for them to posh up their accents?
Yes, because isn't it something that it's more reassuring for people? The classic British Airways pilot is that sort of one as you asked, British Airways flight. I mean, nowadays you've got your Virgin, your Buzz, and your Go. And those guys sound like they're on Radio Top Shop.
They do.
Good morning to you, ladies. Going to get this little baby airborne as soon as I can. First of all, check out Lily Allen.
Yeah. And they tell you the Christian names of the other...
Oh, I hate it. Why? You don't need to know that.
I was on a British Airways flight. It was just after, about 6 weeks after 9/11. Everybody was a little bit tense, and I was flying out of New York. And very tragically, the plane directly in front of us took off and crashed. I don't know if you remember, there was a flight going out to the Dominican Republic.
Oh, yes.
And it crashed. Anyway, we all deplaned, and after about 12 hours, we were allowed back onto the flight. Anyway, the pilot came on, and he said, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the delayed flight to London. I know many of you are seasoned travellers, and you probably don't watch the safety briefing, but perhaps today.
Wow! It's usually Australians. Australians get it right. I was on an Ansett flight from Perth to Adelaide, and he started off by saying, we're on our way to Adelaide. Adelaide is not your final destination. Now would be an ideal time to deplane. And then he sort of started talking about the safety. He said, but that's enough yakety-yak from me. He said, it's time to push some service down the aisles and some scenery past the window. It was very good. Australians are good at that kind of thing. Now, accents we were talking about there, you're absolutely right. People do like what they consider to be an authoritative and reassuring voice from a pilot. 72% of people interviewed felt it easy if a pilot had a what accent?
People like Scottish accents.
Right, Edinburgh in particular. I don't think that would be very good, but a nice, respectable Edinburgh would make
Miss
you feel...
Jean Brodie.
That's right, yes, that would be fine.
You could sit down the plane, it would go ding-dong, you go, this is not the one about the aeroplane that crashes in the river. It's not that one. No.
What about a Geordie accent? 65% of people said a Geordie accent would make them feel more or less comfortable.
You can serve the drinks.
He can serve the drinks.
I don't want him flying the plane.
Well, fun enough.
Very friendly.
65% said
they're
they're okay.
chatting too much, and then they'll just crash into us.
Oh, yeah. 65% said they don't mind a Geordie, they'd like a Geordie.
Yeah, they like that, they have in call centres, don't they?
Yeah. What about Brummies? 76% said they would or would not like them. I'm afraid to say that they would not like.
You just sort of think, sounds like a victim,
yeah.
You know? Doesn't sound incompetent, sounds unfortunate. think
I
that's
don't
the
want a
thing.
skilled
That's the
pilot,
thing.
I want a lucky pilot.
Exactly. The posh voice people could be an idiot, but he's lucked his way through life. Then he screws all the stewardesses and his wife never finds out. Yeah, I want him flying.
And 83% of men and women polled said they'd be more likely to trust a male or a female pilot.
Oh, male,
Male.
must be.
I'm afraid so. Yeah, I'm sorry to say. There we are. So that's your flying done for the moment. Despite the stereotype of the Battle of Britain pilots being posh young chaps, fresh from the better public schools and varsities, the great majority of them were in fact state-educated. Now we're engaged in mortal combat. Perhaps you can tell me which side Yorkshire was on in the Wars of the Roses.
Well, there's the White Roses, Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yes.
it's not the counties, though, is it? It's just the royal houses.
That's the point, exactly.
Oh,
Yorkshire
right.
has no more to
the
do with the
Duke-
House of York
Yeah.
than Kent or Norfolk.
It's the Duke of York versus the Duke of Lancaster.
Yes, exactly. The point is, in fact, most people who lived in Yorkshire were Lancastrians. In fact, they favoured the Lancastrian cause.
But now,
Henry
of
VII,
course,
I mean.
people in
Sorry?
Yorkshire very much associate with the White Rose and the Yorkists.
Well, because it's become the symbol of the county, and the cricket match between the two counties is known as the Roses match, and so on. But you're right. Talking of Yorkshire, there are other things that are called Yorkshire that aren't particularly Yorkshire. Can you think of one?
Pudding?
Yorkshire pudding is not a thing that was invented in Yorkshire, although people from Yorkshire are... Hello?
Oh, yes, this was really annoying. that Yorkshire, but that they're trying to say that, like, you can't make, champagne outside the Champagne region or Stilton outside a certain region, that you wouldn't be allowed to make something and call it a Yorkshire pudding outside Yorkshire, which is basically entirely an idea cooked up entirely by people who manufacture those horrible frozen Yorkshire pudding.
You're right to be angry. Yes, it's called a protected designation of origin, a PDO. And Champagne, as you rightly say, has it. Parma ham has it. You can't call it Parma ham unless it comes from Parma.
But making Yorkshire pudding one of those things would be like making a sandwich.
Yes, I know. You had to come from Sandwich in Kent.
Yeah, you had to go to Marks and Spencer's in Sandwich for the authentic sandwich.
Yeah. But give me some other British PDO protected foods.
There's one, I think that Stilton is one.
Stilton, where must it come from?
But it can't come, for example, from Stilton.
No, that's quite right.
The town of Stilton, which the cheese is named after, the cheese is named after it because that's where the cheese was sold, not where it was manufactured.
Exactly.
So the designated area that you make it in, with bits of Leicestershire, I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway, Stilton's
right.
not
It's
in it.
mostly around the Melton Mowbray area.
What about pork pies then? Melton Mowbray pork pies?
I guess you can't call it a Melton Mowbray pork pie. I don't know if that's a PDO.
Do you know that the chairman of the Pork Pie Association is vegetarian?
I didn't know that.
Yes, I interviewed him and I said, because he brought pork pies for us to try, and I said, go on then, Tucky. And he said, oh, no, thanks very much, I'm vegetarian.
That's very peculiar.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yes, but...
He's angry now.
No, I'm absolutely sure. What's this man done with his life? You can't, on the one hand, say it's wrong to eat animals and then dedicate your professional life to the marketing of ground-up pig.
It's like...
You've got a point.
It's just a sort of pacifist nuclear weapons manufacturer.
But not all vegetarians are vegetarians because they don't agree with the slaughtering of animals. Some do it because they just don't like the taste.
Maybe he thought it was a job being chairman of pork pie hats.
Yes. Or of lying.
Or of lying.
Yes, telling
He
porkies.
thought he's being a spy.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
I've got to tell porkies. I've got to tell pork pies.
I'm going to destroy the pork pie business from the inside.
Well, there you are. The fact is, the more Yorkshire folk supported the Lancastrians than the Yorkists.
Scotch whisky.
Thank you. The question will... the question will no doubt...
Any minute now.
Yeah. On the subject of making a bit of noise, what might you use these for?
Oh, those are fantastic.
Aren't they great?
They're mobile. They
Yes.
look like giant tubers.
In fact, tubers is a word that was used, and they were called war tubers. You can see.
Sirens, sort of air raid warning.
No.
Is it an overlarge hearing aid?
Yes.
What?
Oh.
Yes.
Or is it the hearing enemy aircraft?
It's like an ear trumpet.
Wow.
And you could hear enemy aircraft coming towards you. And by setting the angles, they could determine not just the distance, but the direction.
You wheel it down to Dover, you can hear them in France.
That's the idea, like the sound mirrors.
Interesting.
They had sound mirrors as well, which were not actually made of metal, but usually of concrete. These are Japanese, as it happens. Japanese used them to detect aircraft coming in. We had nothing quite as enormous as that, but there had been things like yokes where you put them on your shoulders. There, look at that. Rather splendid. And it's extraordinary how much they did give you a slight advantage.
It looks silly, but I find myself more and more as I enter my 30s now doing doing that.
Yes.
You see, and it makes a hell of a difference. Take them away, David. Take them away. Now, here I am. Hello, David. Wait, we're not yet. Hello, David. It's lovely to see you. Now try them. Now try.
I'm sorry, what?
Put them there.
Okay, yeah.
Hello, David.
Oh, shut
You see?
Now,
Practical proof.
He's misunderstanding for comic effect. But it's true that if... Hello, David. Lovely to see you.
It does make a difference. It genuinely makes a difference.
Yeah.
So
It makes it sound different.
It sounds much better.
If you do it now, no, that's very disorienting.
That's quite nice. When you talk yourself with them, you almost fall over. So don't talk yourself like this. Also, you look like an idiot.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in front of myself.
Yes.
I think what's nice is it also has a nice warming effect on the ears.
It's really a win-win-win-win-win-win-win, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
I find it very comforting. And also it means you can't hear all the horrible things people behind me are saying.
You have to reverse it like that.
Shut up, shut up, shut up!
Oh, you bitch! Me out. Get back in the knife drawer, Mrs. Sharp.
Perhaps the really clever thing is the fact that you can get the range and the elevation from the slight difference in time. Like what we were saying about clocks. Our own ears receive the same sound, but at slightly different times, because one is nearer than the other. I mean, it's minuscule. It's enough for the brain to process it and know that the sound is coming from there, not from there. And some animals, like the barn owl, have this to an extraordinary degree. Their ears are actually inside a kind of sound dish. That's what that round shape is in the owl's face. And they've got one high looking down and one low looking up. And they're able, therefore, to tell with extraordinary precision something they hear, exactly where it is. So nature always gets there first. So, yes, Japanese war tubers were mobile acoustic locators that helped to find enemy aircraft in the days before radar. And so time's winged chariot glides us gracefully towards the crack of doom. That is, general ignorance, or in this case, generals ignorant. Because let's see what we really know about some of the greatest military leaders from history. Fingers on buzzers. What animals did the Carthaginian general Hannibal use to defeat King Eumenes of Pergamon in 184 BC? No. No. He used to defeat who? King Eumenes of Pergamon.
Right. Him.
Him, there he is.
Is he defeated?
Horses,
Not
tigers,
horses.
lions, leopards, mice.
Bacteria.
Snakes.
Snakes.
Put lots of snakes
Not
in earthenware
really.
jars.
I don't think of that as an animal, really.
Well, and put them in earthenware pots, threw them at the enemy and onto their ships.
Really?
Yeah.
What a great idea.
Snakes on a plane was almost the first example of it. How did Snakes on a Plane come about? Do you know?
Snakes on a plane.
Yes, the film.
People had more money than sense, and
Maybe. No, supposedly it was a group of scriptwriters sitting around trying to think up the stupidest name,
Really?
like a pub game, and someone said, Snakes on a Plane, and they said, you know, that's so crap, it's good.
It would be scary to be on a plane with lots of snakes, though. I mean,
yes,
Good,
it would.
I like the
Yes.
film.
Is
It's
it
quite
good?
scary.
the key would be whether the mechanism, the plot that
Yeah.
leads to the snakes being on the plane is believable or not.
Well, they get out of a thing in a hold.
Oh, well, that sounds all right to me.
Yes.
And they're snakes, so they can get through tiny
They come up the
gaps.
loo.
Whoa!
Might well do.
Ooh, anyway, yes. Hannibal defeated the Pergamese by bombing them with pots full of snakes. Now, who succeeded Harold as King of England in 1066?
Is there a trick to it?
No, it's just you need to name the person who succeeded Harold as king in 1066.
Well, was it the
Don't
bastard?
trust him.
The trick is
I
to know.
know.
The trick is to know the answer.
I don't trust you at all.
Is it the bastard, then?
Who's the bastard? Oh dear. It was not a trick.
Did England cease to exist in some way, or was it changed in name?
There was another Saxon claimant who was nominally king for 45 seconds or something.
Well, for a few months. Right. Yes. Edgar Aveling. And he was 15 years old. But Saxon kings were... How did you become a king if you were Saxon?
Did you have to be sort of
You had to be from
nominated?
one of the 5 or 6 families, and then you'd be elected. Yeah.
It's like the
By what? By votes? They
Yes.
would vote for you.
Yes. Edgar the Aveling He was 15 years old, but of course William had won the battle, and so he came after him and he tried to fight. He couldn't raise an army, he went abroad, didn't really live a very
15,
successful life.
so he wouldn't have been able to do anything, would he, really?
Edgar the Atheling was proclaimed king by the English after the death of Harold and reigned for 2 months before William was crowned. Why did Julius Caesar wear a laurel wreath?
Was it because he was bald?
Yes, is the right answer. Absolutely right. He was very vain. According to Suetonius, his baldness was a disfigurement of which he was deeply ashamed, and so he chose the laurel wreath as one of the things he had a right to wear, and wore it all the time, which others wouldn't.
They said the laurel wreath is going to do wonders for you, Julius. What it's going to do is going to take attention away from baldness. Now, they come in a variety of colours and styles. We're going to start you off with a very simple, traditional one.
He was also supposed to have invented the comb-over, because Suetonius also...
Invented the
Yeah, he combed his hair forward. I should quote you Suetonius in translation. He used to comb forward the scanty locks from the crown of his head, and of all the honours voted for him by the Senate and people, there was none which he received or made use of more gladly than the privilege of wearing a laurel wreath at all times.
It's going to look really
He must
obvious.
have looked like a 60s footballer who'd come through a hedge.
It'd be like leaving your Christmas cracker hat on all year.
So, with that display of general incompetence, we reach the end of recorded history. All that remains to see is who has learnt its lessons and who is condemned to repeat its mistakes endlessly. On Dave. And taking their place in history tonight with a magnificent +2 points is Rob Brydon. Happily dancing to the music of time in second place with -4, it's David Mitchell. But, hanging grimly on to past glories with -27 is Sandy Toxvig. And finally, sadly, no more than a forgotten obscure footnote with -29, Alan Davis. That's all from this historic edition of QI, so it's good night from Sandy, Rob, David, Alan and me. I leave you with Winston Churchill's remark to Stanley Baldwin in the House of Commons. History will say that the right honourable gentleman was wrong, he remarked. I know it will, because I shall write the history. Good night.
Coming up next this evening here on BBC HD, it's Film 2011. Stay with us.